The words hit me like a slap across the face. Let's be realistic here, Owen. Marcus Reed leaned back in his leather chair, straightening his Rolex as if this were just another Tuesday morning for him. You're a software developer. You make, what, 80 grand a year? Maybe 90 if you're lucky? He glanced at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and they shared a knowing smirk. The kind of smirk that told me everything I needed to know about how often they'd laughed at me behind closed doors. Victoria has certain expectations, Marcus continued. Expectations you clearly couldn't meet. So let's save everyone the embarrassment and skip the lawyers, shall we? You can't afford one anyway. I sat there in silence, my hands folded on the conference table. Victoria wouldn't even look at me. She was too busy admiring the diamond bracelet Marcus had given her, the one she'd been wearing for the past 3 months, while telling me she found it at a thrift store. I remember the night she first wore it. She came home at 11, smelling like expensive cologne, not mine, and when I asked about the bracelet, she laughed. Owen, honey, you wouldn't know real diamonds if they hit you in the face. This is costume jewelry. Got it for $20. I nodded, said nothing, but I knew. Marcus slid a piece of paper across the table. Sign this. You keep your car, your clothes, and that sad little apartment you'll be renting. Victoria gets the house, the joint accounts, and we all move on with our lives. He leaned back, that smug expression firmly planted on his face. Trust me, Owen, this is the best deal you're going to get. I've seen your tax returns. You're not exactly swimming in options here. I picked up the paper, looked at it for a long moment. Then I smiled. Actually, Marcus, I said, I think I can afford a lawyer. His smirk faltered, just for a second, but I saw it. In fact, I continued, I can afford several. Victoria finally looked at me. There was something in her eyes, confusion maybe, or the first flicker of doubt. She should have paid more attention. My name is Owen Mitchell. I'm 38 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I grew up in a small town outside Cleveland, Ohio, the kind of place where everybody knows your name and nobody locks their doors. My father was a mechanic who worked 60-hour weeks and never complained. My mother was a school nurse who could patch up a scraped knee and a broken heart with equal skill. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor either. We were comfortable, safe, boring, some might say. I was always good with computers. While other kids were playing sports or chasing girls, I was in my room, teaching myself to code. My parents didn't understand what I was doing. They'd peek in and see screens full of green text and shake their heads, but they never discouraged me. If it makes you happy, son, my father said once, then it's worth doing. By 15, I'd built my first website. By 18, I'd sold my first piece of software to a local business for $500. It wasn't much, but to me, it was proof that I could turn code into money. I went to Ohio State on a partial scholarship, graduated with a degree in computer science, and got a job at a mid-sized tech company in Chicago. The pay was decent, $60,000 to start, slowly climbing to $80,000 over the years. Not exactly fortune, but enough to pay rent, save a little, and feel like I was building something. That's where I met Victoria. I was 26. She was 24. Fresh out of marketing school, ambitious as hell, and absolutely stunning. The kind of woman who made every head turn when she walked into a room. She was assigned to handle the marketing for a product launch I was coding. We worked together for 3 months, and every day I found myself looking forward to our meetings more than I should have. She was in marketing. Beautiful, ambitious, always the center of attention at every company event. I was a quiet guy in the corner, nursing a beer and wondering why I'd even bothered showing up. But somehow she noticed me. You're the one who fixed the server crash last week, right? She asked, sliding into the seat next to me at the company Christmas party. I nodded, too nervous to speak. That was impressive. Everyone was panicking, and you just fixed it, like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. I managed. It took me 14 hours. She laughed. It was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. I like that about you, Owen. You don't brag. You just get things done. We started dating a month later. She was everything I wasn't: outgoing, social, always the life of the party. I was the quiet one, the steady one, the guy who'd rather stay home with a good book than fight for a table at some overpriced restaurant. But somehow we worked, or so I thought. We got married 2 years later, in a small ceremony outside Chicago. Her parents came, wealthy, judgmental, clearly disappointed their daughter had settled for a computer guy. My parents came too, proud and beaming despite the obvious wealth gap between our families. I should have seen the warning signs then. The way Victoria's mother looked at me. The way her father asked about my career trajectory, like I was a stock he was considering selling. But I was in love, and love makes you blind. For the first few years, everything was perfect. We bought a house in the suburbs, nothing fancy, but ours. Victoria worked her way up in marketing. I kept coding, kept collecting my steady paycheck, kept being the reliable husband who had dinner ready when she came home late from client meetings. For a while, that was enough. The first cracks appeared around year 5. Victoria had been promoted to senior marketing manager. She was making good money, better than me, actually, and she wasn't shy about reminding me. "Owen, we need to talk about the car situation," she said one evening over dinner. "What about it?" "Your Honda is embarrassing. I have clients, important clients. If they see me getting dropped off in a 12-year-old Civic, what does that say about me? It says you married a guy who paid off his student loans and doesn't believe in debt." She rolled her eyes. "This is what I mean. You have no ambition, no drive. You're content to just exist. I'm content to live within our means." "Our means?" She laughed bitterly. "Owen, I make twice what you make. Maybe I should start saying my means." I didn't respond. I just finished my dinner in silence. That was the first time I felt it, that cold knot in my stomach that told me something was wrong. Something deeper than just an argument about cars. The comments got worse over time. Little jabs that stung more than she probably intended. My friends' husbands are all directors or vice presidents by now. "What's your title again? Senior developer?" I saw Jessica's new kitchen today. Marble countertops, custom cabinetry. Must be nice to have a husband who provides. "Owen, I love you, but sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I'd married someone with a little more drive." I absorbed it all. Told myself every marriage had rough patches. Told myself she was just stressed from work, that we'd get through it. I was wrong. But there was something else I never told her. Something I've been building quietly, secretly, for almost 3 years. If you're enjoying the story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever been underestimated by someone who thought they knew your worth? I'd love to hear your story. Now, back to mine. I discovered the affair on a Tuesday. It was raining that day, one of those gray, miserable Chicago afternoons where the sky seems to press down on you like a wet blanket. I'd come home early because of a migraine. Victoria's car was in the driveway. Strange, since she'd told me she had a client dinner that evening. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house was quiet, too quiet, and then I heard it, laughter, coming from upstairs. Victoria's laughter, that bright, musical sound I'd fallen in love with 10 years ago. But there was another voice, too. A man's voice. Deep, confident, nothing like mine. My heart stopped. I walked to the bottom of the stairs. Stood there for what felt like an eternity, listening to the sounds drifting down from the bedroom. Our bedroom. The giggling. The whispered words I couldn't quite make out. The creak of bed springs. My stomach dropped. I should have walked up those stairs. Should have burst through that door and confronted them. But I didn't. Instead, I turned around, walked out the front door, and sat in my car in the rain for 3 hours. Because I'd realized something. I didn't confront Victoria that night. I came home at 7, pretending I'd been at work the whole time. She was in the kitchen, making dinner like nothing had happened. "How was your day?" she asked, not even looking up from the stove. "Fine. Yours?" "Client dinner ran late. I'm exhausted." She yawned theatrically, sold the lie without a hint of shame. I nodded, smiled, played my part, because I'd realized something important sitting in that car in the rain. If I confronted her now, it would be over. She'd cry, make excuses, maybe even beg for forgiveness. And then what? Divorce, lawyers, splitting everything 50-50. She'd get half of everything I owned, half the savings, half the retirement, maybe even alimony, since she'd been the primary breadwinner for most of our marriage. But what if there was another way? See, there was something Victoria didn't know about me, something I've been keeping secret for almost 3 years now. When I said I was just a software developer, that wasn't entirely accurate. 5 years into our marriage, around the same time Victoria started looking at me like I was beneath her, I'd start a side project, a little app for managing restaurant inventory. Nothing fancy, just something to scratch an itch, solve a problem I'd noticed while helping my cousin with his pizza shop. Cousin Tony, we called him. He was drowning in spreadsheets. I spent a weekend building him a simple tool to manage it all. Then I thought, why not make it available to other restaurants? I released it under a pseudonym, charged a small monthly fee, kept my name completely off everything. For the first year, it barely made $1,000 a month. Nice pocket money, but nothing life-changing. But then, slowly, quietly, it started to grow. By year 2, we had 5,000 subscribers. By year 3, 20,000. Restaurant chains started calling. Investors started sniffing around. I never told Victoria. Why? At first, it was because it didn't seem like a big deal. The money was nice, but I was reinvesting everything back into the company. But as the marriage deteriorated, as Victoria's contempt for me grew, I started to see the secret differently. It wasn't just money. It was protection. 2 years ago, I took an investment from Apex Capital Partners, one of the biggest restaurant-focused investment firms in the country. They put in $8 million for a 15% stake. Do the math. That valued my little side project at over $50 million. And tonight, as I sat in that rain-soaked car, watching my wife's lover's BMW pull out of our driveway, I knew exactly how I was going to use that protection. Over the next 6 months, I gathered evidence. I hired a private investigator, a former FBI agent named Frank, who looked like someone's grandfather, but had the instincts of a hunting dog. I need to know everything. I told him at our first meeting. Who, where, when. And I need it documented. Frank nodded. I'll be discreet. Your wife won't suspect a thing. I know she won't. She thinks I'm too stupid to notice. He gave me a long look. A lot of husbands say that, Mr. Mitchell, usually with anger, but you sound calculated. I've had 6 months to process the anger, Frank. Now I just want to be prepared. Frank was thorough, very thorough. Within 2 weeks, he had photos of Victoria and her lover at restaurants, hotels, even a weekend getaway to Miami. He had screenshots of text messages. Victoria used the same password for everything, our anniversary date. How romantic. He had bank statements showing gifts the man had bought her. The man's name is Marcus Reed, Frank reported. He's a partner at Morrison, Blake & Reed, one of the top corporate law firms in Chicago. A lawyer, I said. Of course. He makes about $700,000 a year, drives a Porsche 911, owns a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. Frank slid a folder across the table. And here's where it gets interesting. I opened the folder. Inside was a corporate structure chart. Morrison, Blake & Reed provides legal counsel to Apex Capital Partners, Frank explained. And Apex Capital Partners is my investor. Marcus Reed has been handling Apex's legal work for about 4 years now. He doesn't know who you are. Your name is buried under 3 LLCs. But his firm's biggest client is indirectly you. I stared at the chart for a long moment. The man sleeping with my wife, I said slowly, owes his career to my success. Ironic, isn't it? I closed the folder. Frank, I think I know exactly what I'm going to do. Victoria filed for divorce on March 15th. Her lawyer, not Marcus, that would be too obvious, sent me a letter outlining her demands. The house, the joint accounts, half of my 401k, alimony payments of $4,000 a month. Based on your current salary, the letter read, this seems fair and equitable. I almost laughed. Instead, I called my own lawyer. Rebecca Chun, one of the top divorce attorneys in Illinois. Owen, Rebecca said after reviewing my case, "This is going to be fun." The mediation meeting was scheduled for April 3rd. Victoria insisted Marcus attend. As her advisor, she said, I didn't object. I wanted him there. The conference room at Victoria's lawyer's office was designed to intimidate. High ceilings, mahogany table, oil paintings of stern-looking old men on the walls. Victoria sat on one side with Marcus and her lawyer, Harold Brennan. I sat on the other side. Alone. "Where's your lawyer?" Harold asked, looking confused. "She'll be here soon." Marcus leaned forward. "Owen, I've been advising Victoria on this matter, and I think we can come to a reasonable agreement without dragging this through the courts. The facts are simple. Victoria was a primary breadwinner for most of your marriage. She deserves to maintain her standard of living." He gestured at me dismissively. "You, frankly, were dead weight." He slid the paper across the table. That's when he said it. Those words I'll never forget. "Let's be realistic. Owen, you can't afford a lawyer anyway." I looked at the paper, looked at Marcus, looked at Victoria, who was examining her manicure like this whole thing was boring her. And then I smiled. "Actually, Marcus," I said, "I think I can afford a lawyer." The conference room door opened. Rebecca Chin walked in, followed by two associates carrying boxes of documents. Behind them came Thomas Reeves, the CEO of Apex Capital Partners. Marcus's face went white. "What is this?" he stammered. "This," I said, "is me affording a lawyer." Rebecca took over with the precision of a surgeon. "Let me introduce myself. I'm Rebecca Chun, representing Mr. Owen Mitchell." She placed a thick folder on the table. "And these are Mr. Mitchell's financial disclosures." Harold Brennan opened the folder. His confident expression melted into confusion, then shock. "What is this?" "Those are the asset declarations for Menucraft Solutions, Incorporated," Rebecca said calmly. "Mr. Mitchell is the sole founder, majority shareholder, and acting CEO." She paused, letting it sink in. "Current company valuation, $52 million. Annual revenue, $8.3 million. Mr. Mitchell's personal stake is valued at approximately $50 million. Victoria's jaw dropped. "What?" "Owen built a software company," Rebecca continued. "Menucraft is used by about 30,000 restaurants nationwide. And 2 years ago, Apex Capital Partners invested $8 million for a 15% stake." The room was dead silent. Marcus found his voice first. "This is ridiculous. If he had that kind of money, why would he live modestly? Keep his success private? Not flaunt his wealth to impress people?" Rebecca shrugged. "Because he's not an insecure narcissist, I suppose." Victoria was staring at me now. "Owen, is this true?" I nodded. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would it have mattered, Victoria? 3 years ago, when you said I had no ambition. 2 years ago, when you called me boring. 1 year ago, when you started sleeping with Marcus." She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's when I turned to Marcus. "Mr. Reed, do you know who provides legal counsel to Apex Capital Partners?" His face was the color of old paper. "What does that have to—" "Your firm, Morrison, Blake and Reed. And do you know what Apex Capital Partners' largest single investment is?" He didn't answer. "My company. My $50 million company." I leaned forward. "Which means your firm's biggest client is indirectly me." Thomas Reeves stepped forward. "Let me make something very clear, Mr. Reed. Apex Capital represents approximately 40% of Morrison, Blake, and Reed's corporate billings. If we pull our business, which we absolutely will if you remain employed there, the firm will have to downsize significantly, perhaps close entirely." Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. "Here's how this is going to go," I said. "You're going to leave this room. You're going to tell your partners exactly what you've done, and then you're going to resign. You can't. If you fight me on this, here's what happens. Thomas pulls Apex's business. Your firm collapses. The Illinois Bar Association gets an anonymous tip about your ethical violations, and you spend the next 10 years trying to rebuild a career, while every major firm in the country knows exactly why you were disbarred. The silence stretched on for an eternity. Or, I continued, you walk away now, quietly, and we all move on with our lives. Marcus stood up. His hands were shaking as he buttoned his jacket. He walked out without a word. Victoria tried to salvage things, of course. "Owen, please," she begged after meeting. Her mascara was running. Her perfect composure finally cracked. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but we can work through this. We can—" "No, Victoria, we can't. But I love you." I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I'd loved for 10 years. The woman I'd built a life with. The woman who'd spent the last 3 years making me feel like I wasn't enough. "You love what you just found out I have," I said quietly. "That's not the same thing. That's not true, isn't it?" I gathered my papers. "You called me boring. Said I had no ambition. You slept in our bed with a man who looked at me like I was nothing. And the whole time, Victoria, I was building an empire while you were too busy chasing status to notice. I didn't know." "That's exactly the problem." I stopped at the door. "You never saw me, Victoria. You saw what you expected to see, a boring, unambitious man who wasn't good enough for you. You never once asked what I was working on all those late nights. Never wondered why I was always so calm about money, about our future." She was crying now. Real tears, maybe for the first time since I'd known her. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now? The divorce proceeds. You keep whatever you brought into the marriage. I keep everything else. Our joint savings, $20,000, get split. That's it. And Marcus is none of your concern anymore." I opened the door. "Goodbye, Victoria." I walked out. Rebecca handled the rest of the divorce. It was finalized in June. Victoria got her clothes, her car, and $10,000, half of our joint savings. Nothing else. Marcus did resign from his firm. The story I heard later was that his partners gave him exactly 2 choices: resign quietly or be fired publicly and face a bar investigation. He chose door number 1. Last I heard, he'd relocated to Arizona, some small town outside Phoenix. He was practicing law out of a strip mall, personal injury, divorce, traffic tickets. The penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan? Sold. The Porsche? Traded in for a used Camry. As for me, I sold Menucraft 8 months after the divorce for $93 million. Kept a small ownership stake. Stayed on as an advisor for a year and then walked away completely. I moved to San Diego. Bought a beach house with a view of the Pacific. Got a dog, a golden retriever named Chester, who doesn't care how much money I have, as long as I throw the ball. Some nights, I still think about Victoria. Not with anger anymore. That faded a long time ago. Just with a kind of distant wonder. She had everything she claimed to want right in front of her, but she was so blinded by what she expected to see that she never noticed. I wake up every morning now to the sound of waves. Chester curls up at my feet while I drink my coffee and watch the sunrise. And sometimes I think about Marcus, probably sitting in some fluorescent-lit strip mall office right now, handling someone's traffic ticket for $300. Sometimes revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it just has to be patient. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated or overlooked by someone who should have known better, hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. I share stories like this every week. Stories of quiet revenge, patient justice, and the satisfaction of proving everyone wrong. Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have done differently? Would you have confronted Victoria that first day? Would you have told her about the company earlier? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time,